Your source for all things Texas Tech. This is the Ask Level podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome into another episode of the Ask Level podcast. Alongside Chris Level, I'm Chois Woodman. This episode, as always, brought to you by our friends over at Cantex Roofing and Construction.
I'm Mike Hebert, owner of Cantex Roofing and Construction. Every day is game day, and we'll get it right when it comes to your roofing, construction, windows, and mirrors. Call Cantex Roofing and Construction today. Together, we are one serving you.
Christopher Level, we are inside of football month. We are creeping closer to the season. It'll be in our laps before we know it. How you been, man?
Yeah, I mean, you're depending on when people listen to this, you are 3+ weeks away is all.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the plus will be identified by when exactly you're listening to this. But
sure.
Yeah, less than 4 weeks out, I would say. So
I'm ready.
No, I'm doing good. I mean, I'm just, this is a hard time of year for me just to get to this point, and then you still feel like, oh, we're still so far away. Yeah, a full slate of NFL preseason this upcoming weekend. Florida State, Boston College is 2 weeks from this Saturday. I guess that would be right.
Yeah.
Week 0, week -1, week whatever, kind of the week before, where they do sneak a few of those college games in before the actual season starts. But yeah, and obviously Joey's Red Raiders are a weekend of practices basically, and the acclimation period is behind them, and then you just kind of hold your breath for injury stuff and for just kind of hope that it's fairly quiet, if you will, over the next 2 to 3 weeks as your programs around the country prepare for their openers.
Yeah. So with that Level, just kind of some generic, basics with fall camp opening up. There's some people that don't like fall camp, by the way, calling it that, but
because it's still summer.
I guess so. Yeah. Some people it bothers them, but anyway, that's
fall. I mean, football is a fall sport.
It is,
and I guess you could come up with football camp or preseason camp or some other term instead of like the season it was, but it's a fall sport. This is the beginning of the season of that, and so yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So anyway, it doesn't bother me. Fall camp is here, and why would somebody take issue with it being fall camp? I can't let that go. I'm sorry. I know. Of all the hills to die on, there's one. I mean, people know who it is. There's one local media member that really that's the hill to die on. They just don't.
Can you tell me who this is?
Oh, it's Don Williams. He's been around Tech football forever, and
so he doesn't like it being called fall camp.
Yeah, I think he stays away from the fall camp thing and doesn't. And it may be the fall aspect, or just I don't know why he's been on that one for a while.
I mean, I will tell you that I was at a function with Don Williams back in April. He had a brand new sport coat on.
Oh,
it was I have to wear sport coats probably more often than he does for various events, and I kind of tried to help him with the back pleat was sewn together, the front pocket sewn together, and you got to take like the little tiny scissors and kind of undo that and let it go, and all. That's what most sport coats are. I tried to, because he had this big white like X on the back of his sport coat that
I know
it was sewn together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was trying to help, and Don, he barely said thank you to me. And I was trying to save him from a public disgrace. I mean, so, no fall camp. How about no white X, like sewn together hems on the back of your sport coat?
There you go.
I'm kidding.
I like it.
He said thank you. It's a true story. I was trying to help him. well, hey man, I can't send you out into this group of people looking like this, man. My mom would not be okay with that in any way, since I know that it's kind of like pick me, when somebody puts the sign on the back of you. That's like the adult version when you got the white X
Right.
of sewn together sport coat when you needed to like kind of,
Yep.
do a little snip there with some of the. It's like walking around with a tag hanging out, whatever. Same
Little
thing.
man helping man there. Yeah, you know what? And I can't say anything about Don because I have done both. I've done the sport coat thing and walked out with the tag hanging out. So
Okay, there you go.
probably the
fall,
tag thing.
but I'll just tell you, I'll say fall camp as much as I want.
I do too.
I'm sorry.
It's fall camp.
I'm not apologizing to anybody for that. I'll die on that hill. I have no problem with that. But
I'm just happy fall camp is here because
yes,
it is one step closer to football. Now, for you, Chris Level, you can put whatever number on this you want, but what are your main storylines that you're honed in on going into fall camp? Like for
the
Red, for the Red Raiders specific. Like what is the things you're are
I'll
most
probably
watching?
go about 7 or 8 deep here. You ready? Some are very specific, some are broader.
I'm game.
Well, and we're keep in mind maybe a bit tweaked that I would have told you a week ago, just because we're a week in and there's some things that have come to light. So here we go. You ready?
Yep.
So this would be a good list to like write down because I'm gonna be thorough here.
Okay, I'm writing it down then.
The first one is the offensive line continues to be tenuous. I think that will continue to be a storyline and a question mark. I would even say as we get into even to September, even maybe late September, until it's not. I think I even feel much more this way because you've got no left tackle and no backup interior top offensive lineman in Davion Carter right now. There's a few other guys that are missing, I think, too, that are just minor stuff, but there's questions already there, and you can't even get a good look at your group that you plan on using. Now we're a week or so in, and you're still that's. And I think we thought that group would be better last year than it was.
We did. Yep.
I think that's whether that's partly why there was a change made at the position coach and some different things done recruiting. I don't know, but there was a lot of assets thrown at this position. Okay, so there's that.
Okay.
That is clearly something that has to do or is entangled with, how about that, with keeping Baron Morton healthy. That is still, so that this is to me 1 and 1A.
Yeah.
He's healthy now. Is it still this this way 10 days from now, a week from now, where he's been throwing and now we've practiced and all these things? They are purposely doing 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off, and all that leading up to the week of the first game versus Abilene Christian. Just to be smart. I think there's more things you can actually do in the summer. But then I'm fascinated by the whole, like, okay, his arm and shoulder and all that. And then what kind of, because he's never really played healthy here.
That's true. Yeah.
He's always had something like the high ankle or the shoulder. And I'm just, for him and for this team, I would love to see what it looks like when healthy and turn loose, and then we can build on that. How does Cam Brown factor into that? Because I think Cam Brown is still somebody that is a situational player, but Joey maintains that, hey man, going to see this every game. So is that every game, short yardage, goal line, and all that? And if so, how often? Is it in fact all or every game? So that dynamic with the QB part is okay. How healthy is Barron, and then how much do we see Cam? Because it is a different look. I mean, if you could just run the playbook, like bring him in and let him run for 5 touchdowns as a backup. I mean, I've seen that playbook before. That playbook is pretty good.
Yeah, I like that one.
Yeah, and in fact, you can get put on a Heisman Trophy watch list the following season if you can do that and drive a lavender car, I think, like Avery Johnson does up in Manhattan, Kansas.
Yeah.
I digress. So okay, there's that. Then you have the youth in the secondary. You're replacing Rabbit. You're replacing two longtime players at corner. I think you feel like the following. You feel like you're more physical. You maybe feel like you're a bit deeper and faster, but it's just wildly less experienced. I mean, like CJ Baskerville or Julian, as his grandmother would prefer us that we say, and Braylon Lux, they stick out like a sore thumb in that secondary because they're really the only two guys back there with any legit experience, 30 plus games and all that. Everybody else, I mean, you can look at Chapman Lewis and way he played 12 games last year. Yeah, but it was barely playing. It was very much in reserve and only on special teams as a true freshman.
Yep.
And on it goes. And so there's a lot of possibilities there, but there's also a lot of like, oof. I mean,
you got 4 sophomores that got in last year at times because of necessity, because you were thin and you had to throw them in with Lewis and Brendan Jordan and Samford and Mo Horn. All those guys, I think there's like you said, a lot of potential there. And coaches like what they see, but the Big 12 snaps, the snaps overall is a little bit of a scary thing for sure.
The offensive skill has been upgraded, I feel.
Agreed.
I think that's a pretty prevailing thought. However, it's also a bit of a low bar, if we're being honest.
Sure it is.
And it needed to be upgraded, but it must produce at the upgraded level. Which gets me to like my third, fourth, or fifth point, wherever we are on this kind of list. 42% of games in the Big 12 Conference in the last 2 years are one-score games. And I think that is beefed up as this conference is this year. It's all, I mean, it's going to be wild how many teams are really in the conference race in late October, early November, and all those things. When you start looking at a flow chart, well, if this happens and these teams, whatever, I think you're going to be able to identify 8 to 10 teams that still have a very legitimate shot to get to Arlington. Okay. So a lot of this race is going to come down to who can win their close games and the one-score games and all those things, because I just think there's so much parity here. I'll be shocked if a couple of teams or even one team can just run off from everybody else and just be perfect and kind of, I think that you could see a variety of teams with 1, 2, 3 loss type jumbled up mess. Okay. Point being, Joey's program, since he took over, is 7-3 in one-score games. I think that you were really good in that in year one. You were really good in that to end last year. However, to start the season last year, it was a bit of a mess because West Virginia, Oregon, Wyoming, it's like our pets' heads are falling off. Like we've forgotten how to win close games. And you just feel like, even though barely losing, you feel like we don't know what we're doing. This football program's headed the wrong way. What is happening? You just like Dumb and Dumber. You got to get the Scotch tape and glue that pet's head back on there and give it to a blind kid.
Well done. I mean, anytime you throw a Dumb and Dumber reference in,
I mean, that's right.
Well done.
Yeah. Pretty bird. Pretty bird.
They just don't make movies like that.
I gave it to Petey. The blind kid? Yeah. I mean, so anyways, but it's just fascinating how much better life feels or how terrible life feels, even though you are playing very close games, but just the margin for error is just here or there, just a little bit. Okay. And that's ultimately who's going to win this league this year, or who's going to play in Arlington, is the team that does that the best. Let's just call it what it is. Like, for all the talk about like Iowa State, and there's a lot of dark horse for the league title, like ranked top 25. They have 85% of their production back. They have lost as a program 13 of their last 16 one-score games, two of which are against the Red Raiders.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jonathan Garibay, and shout out to whenever you want to win, throw it to the tight end, Baylor Cup, and 0 degrees in the end zone.
It wasn't that cold.
Yeah, it was.
I'm just messing.
Freezing.
Get another November Ames game this year.
The other thing, one of the last points I'll make before we wrap on just kind of all the is you got to figure out a way to win away from your place, man. I think you're 3-8 if you're Coach McGuire in his tenure. Doesn't count the 2 bowl games; those are neutral site. True road games, I think you're 3-8. That's why Baylor last year. That's why Kansas last year those were big deals. And I think obviously I just mentioned the Iowa State one. Those are the three wins. Everything else has been a loss, including in the non-conference. And if you can't win one-score games and you can't win away from your place, it doesn't matter what we say about the offensive line or about how much upgraded the offensive skill is.
Sure.
Barron's shoulder, the youth on the secondary, speed, blah blah blah, all that stuff. So yeah, there's just a giant, and I could keep going, but you get the idea. There's some personnel, there's some big picture, some stats and numbers, and just all kinds of stuff there. So
well done.
Anyway,
I mean,
I'll just spin it like a top, and then I'll watch it just wobble after it's done.
I took copious notes because I mean that's what you told me to do. So to sum up Level's top storylines of fall camp, we had 7 of them from my count. O-line, how much improved will they actually be?
Gotta make a jump.
That's one, or that's 1A. 1B was how healthy can Baron Morton be this season? Do we get to see a healthy Baron Morton? 3 was Cam Brown. How does he factor in? And that correlates with the health, or may not with.
And you can
Baron
make
Morton.
that one. You can make that one. Like, what does the QB position look like?
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
that
do
can all be
we
one.
do they really treat it like Donovan Smith and kind of go, hey man, we're gonna do some of this stuff in the red zone? Because you often hear defensive coordinators say with running quarterbacks, they so often call their own number when you get inside the red zone because it's so difficult to stop.
Yep.
And I mean, do you now have a specialist for this? Because this is when we saw Donovan Smith 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a lot of the red zone and it was a lot of run. And it's difficult to stop. Where did we see Avery Johnson burn you last year? A lot of it was, inside the 30 or the 20 or whatever. And it's just like, you just have a hard time with it. So that's why I offer that up.
4 was youth in the secondary. 5, offensive skill. You've upgraded, but by how much? 6, can you win close games? And 7 was, can Tech win away from home? I think those are all, I mean, that questions that we all have as Tech fans. So, with that, we can lead into our first question. This one's from Adrian. It says, I've been a Texas Tech fan for a long time, Level, and I know that I can't get my hopes too high. So what is a reasonable expectation for this football season?
I mean, there's obviously the injury caveat that can kind of change the dynamic here to where, you're having to go to Provo, Utah on a Saturday night with an 18-year-old true freshman quarterback, which is just not ideal. Don't care.
Yeah.
That's hard. It's hard to win those.
I mean, that one felt
way
like your most helpless game of the season last year,
right?
And
you still, that's how bad BYU was. You still were in a position to kind of within striking distance. I mean, you got the what's the mascot there? And he's twirling the fire sword. And what's his name?
Comet, right? The Cougar? Comet? Do I have that wrong? Oh, right.
I don't think that's right.
You don't think so?
No, but I can't. I mean, shame on me because I can't give you the. I don't think that's right. I think
Cosmo. Dang it!
Yes,
I knew it had to be something with
maybe
astrology.
Maybe that's the name of the mascot, like for the Houston Rockets or something.
That probably is.
But Cosmo,
Cosmo.
Yeah, that place is sold out. They're singing the Backstreet Boys 2 hours before the game starts in their student section, like they've just been locked up all week and they've been let out, and it's like we are gonna go crazy.
you know, cougar tails and donuts for everybody, and it's just like they're just going like crazy. And you're dropping the ball on the goal line, going into the end zone on your own end zone, and all, and they still they're playing dirty and accusing your guys of spitting and doing all kinds of things and spearing guys out of bounds and all this, and you were still within striking distance. And I think you turned it over 5 times. That was a very frustrating game.
Ouch.
But that just speaks to the quarterback issue. So with that being said, long story short, to wrap up the answer to the question, I mean, with 7 home games, boy, you'd like to think you could win at least 6 of those 7. I'm not saying that you're winning them all, and I mean, is there a chance that, you know, because I mean, I can't with in good conscience sit here and say, man, I could see Cincinnati beating you. No, I can't. You just can't. That can't be.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, Arizona State. Those are just games that you need to. But you know, Baylor is a bit of an unknown, but that'll be a fight just because. I mean, 2 years ago they were here.
I mean, all 3 of those teams you named, Level, won 3 games apiece.
I know.
Last year.
I know. I mean,
they
West
combined
Virginia
for 9-27.
West Virginia on Thanksgiving weekend, that should be, depending on what each team is at the time, that could absolutely be a bit juiced. And then Colorado is a bit of a wild card to me. Mm-hmm. So, and keep in mind, nobody's going to think about that North Texas game. I'm just going to tell you, you're going to get back really late from Pullman.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a shortened week because you're going to get back really late, and then it's an 11 a.m. kick.
Yeah.
And they are 4-4 against you in the last 8 games. And so it's just, I'm sorry, but I've got way too much PTSD from my college.
I think a lot of Tech fans have the PTSD from that game. That being said, North Texas had the worst defense in FBS last year. So you should be able to put some points up in that game, if nothing else.
Yes, I mean, I say all this to say, the Colorado game is a bit interesting too. They've got star power. I don't think very good on defense, special teams, and all these things. But who the heck knows? And who knows what they look like at the time that you get them, because that's in early November, I think. So you should win 6 of those 7, in my opinion. And at that point, you're bowl eligible. And if you figured out, so I'll just say that all to offer up, let's go worst case scenario. If you go 6 games at home, surely of the 5, you can figure out a way to win 2 on the road. You did last year. And at that point, that's 8 wins. And that's being realistic, but it's also not just going crazy with your expectations. That is my expectation at a minimum, that you're an 8-win team. Again, with the caveat that if Baron Morton's shoulder doesn't cooperate and you have to alter that plan, then you get the right to change your outlook and all those things. But that's how I'll leave it. But I think you should expect 8 to 9 win territory.
Definitely feels like that. Feels like you were given a break for once by the schedule makers in the Big 12, and you need to take advantage of that. You play some of the better games at home to win, and I mean,
none of your road games will be easy though. Every one of your road trips are tricky because Pullman, for the Wyoming reasons, and there's a lot of familiarity. They throw the ball all over the place. We've already mentioned youth in the secondary, the Mike Leach component. There's just going to be a lot of emotion there, and you're going to be a long way from home. Yes. You and I have been to Raleigh together. We've been to Laramie together, and some of you are not, and it just hasn't gone well. And it sets the stage for, it just creates this dynamic where, like, well, we dropped an early one here, now we got to, so you need to avoid that if you can. But Fort Worth, gonna be tricky. Ames, as we've discussed, gonna be tricky. Arizona, gonna be tricky. I was there in 19. You came home with a quarterback in a sling, and it wasn't some intimidating atmosphere or anything like that. You just didn't play great on a Saturday night there. And the final road game is, let's see, Ames,
OSU.
Yeah, we got Stillwater. Oh yeah,
that one.
Yeah, that would be interesting too. Yeah, the week before the weekend before Thanksgiving. So yeah, because they're all offensive line back, best receiver back, top running back, quarterback back, uh, arguably maybe the best set of linebackers in the Big 12 conference back.
Possibly.
So, I mean, any of those are to be celebrated, but surely we can figure out a way to win a couple of them. Don't call me Shirley.
So. Don't call me Shirley. Yeah. Yeah, you would think so. And I think that's, maybe that storyline that you highlighted earlier is can you win away from home? One thing that Coach McGuire brought up earlier this week, I think it may have been on Media Day, he talked about it. But this is a different group of guys that you talk about culture, you hear that all thrown around a bunch, but this is just about all Coach McGuire and staff's group now. You've got 9, 10, 11 guys maybe that were here when he got here. And that's it. I mean, everybody else is recruited either through the portal or through high school to be part of the brand, if you will. So you would hope maybe you start to instill that brand that whole group can learn as a group to win away from home. And
this is the hardest thing that coaches have to do in the portal NIL era is the culture component.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing really in general, and it's even become much more difficult now because of so much new that comes in every year. And there's like you're because who you're talking about is like a handful of them, like your Taj Brookses, your Caleb Rogers, your Baron Mortons. I'm trying to think of who else.
Mason Tharp.
Yeah, your Mason Tharps. Yeah, you're right.
Jacob Rodriguez as well, right?
Well, no, he started out of Virginia.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know if he came here. He may have come in here when Joey got here and transferred in. He's a Wichita Falls Rider kid and was at Virginia and maybe transferred in a semester potentially and walked on a bit. But point being is the Caleb Rogerses, the Mason Tharps, the Taj Brookses, the Baron Mortons, and all that, these are going to be kind of like seen as like unicorn-ish.
Yeah.
Because, and the more of those guys you have, the better off it is for you, because that means you hit on them, one, because you didn't try to go, hey, man, it ain't working here. You need to go play somewhere else. You wanted to keep them, but two, that they wanted to stay and all those things, instead of being like, man, y'all aren't paying me enough. Just the whole deal. But because ideally, we're having the same conversation with Will Hammond, Micah Hudson, John Curry. I mean, on and on it goes with all the people. But that's maybe Pollyanna-ish to think of it that way. But that's the goal. The culture is the hard part for sure.
No doubt. Okay, a couple more questions we could squeeze in before we wrap this up. Someone asks. This one is from Matt. Says, Level, what is Texas Tech's biggest liability this season, and what is its biggest strength?
I think your biggest liability, I'll just answer that one first, is lack of experience on the defensive side of the ball in general. I think at times you won't notice it, but I think at times it could sting you a bit and bite you. Busted coverage, some miscommunication, just something that could pop up that maybe even we can't even identify at the time, and then you find out, they miscommunicated. It's just a lot of inexperience to throw out there and not expect, something or some things to kind of be amiss at times, because that's the beauty of experience. That's the beauty of having a guy like Rabbit, is he seals games against TCU at home on a big Thursday night.
True.
Because he knows where he's supposed to be. There's just some of that. I mean, that you can't talk about that being such an ideal scenario and then gloss over it when it's not in your favor. So I think that's a bit of a liability. And Joey and Tim have talked about this. Yeah. They may be faster, they may be deeper, they may be longer and rangier, from 1 to 24 player that they may be planning on. But the lack of experience, at least here and together, to me is a big concern. I would say offensive line is that too. We've already covered it, so I'm not going to go into that. Your biggest strength is out to me. It's some of the headliners with your offensive skill. And some people would say, well, like, wasn't it a liability last year? Yeah. Well, Taj Brooks is the last thing I'm worried about on the team. Josh Kelly is one of the last things I'm worried about on the team. Jalen Conyers is one of the last things well, why are you saying that? Because they've done it consistently at Power 5 levels elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So it stands to reason they will all do this at some level again here, which means it's a strength to me. I don't know where else I can look on your team and say, I know what I'm going to get. But I feel like with some of the skill on the offensive side of the ball with certain guys, I know what I'm going to get. And that makes a coach feel warm and fuzzy at night, because it's like, there's no guesswork here. Yeah. Like I don't have to project or guesstimate or go, man, maybe we ought to play this guy instead of that guy. No, you've got some proven commodities on your offensive side of the ball at the skill positions. And it was needed. And now we just have to have them do what they've done before, and I think if you get some of that across the board, it may make everybody's life easier. Barron, Zach, Joey, the group up front, the whole deal. And I haven't even talked about the 5-star player, and that's
no, you haven't.
As a prospect, that is supposed to be the label is like, okay, we don't know everything about this kid, but we are telling you he's not going to suck. Like he's not, like he's gonna
no. Yeah,
it's a hit. Like you've good, at minimum he's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe that's not good enough for some, but at minimum he's gonna be good. But we think he's got a chance to play in the pros. He's gonna be an all-conference guy. That's what that label, that 5-star label means. Yeah. And I didn't even mention him, but that's gotta help you sleep a bit better at night too.
Or, maybe your second most offensive or consistent offensive player last year, and Coy Aiken too. So I mean that room, it feels
Cowboy Coy.
It feels definitely like a strength going into the season. Obviously,
and it needed to be. And again, Dre McCray, Caleb Douglas, Jordan Brown.
Yeah.
What happens with those two running backs with Cameron Valdez and Cam Dickey? You see video late last week.
Yeah.
Cam Dickey hitting 20 plus on the GPS that they talk about, and he's just scooting down there. He's 215. If he can learn how to pick up a blitz and all that, you've got a nice compliment to Taj Brooks, but that, Cam Valdez will have his name mentioned as well. So anyway, there's just a lot of fun there.
Yeah, a couple of redshirt freshmen the coach has been talking a lot about, Kelby Valson and TJ West. These are guys too. I mean, it
John Carlos Miller.
John Carlos Miller, of course, yeah. Mm-hmm. So it does feel a lot deeper, and if one of those guys isn't quite what you thought or hoped they would be, hopefully you've got a next guy in line that does kind of pick up the slack that you didn't have last year. So, Level, it's fun stuff. A lot of football talk. Sure makes me excited for the season. I think a lot of Red Raider fans are taking the cautiously optimistic approach to this.
I rank this show 5 stars today. I felt like we put our best foot forward. I think
so. At minimum, we were good. There we go.
Yeah, touche. Or as I used to say when I was a little kid, touchy. I didn't really understand. It's got the little, the little thing over the E. Touche.
There's been I feel like I'm learning French because all this Olympic stuff going on.
Merci beaucoup. Yes.
All right, you lost me.
Yeah, all that stuff. Hey man, enjoyed it. Thank you to Cantex Roofing. Certainly appreciate their support of what you and I do, and look forward to it. And I guess next time we talk, the Red Raiders will have already had one scrimmage under their belt, I think.
That's right.
They'll be basically a week and a half to 2 weeks into practices. Mm-hmm. And again, you just continue to hold your collective breath and just hope that you stay injury free with certain guys and all that stuff. But getting closer.
Much closer.
Yeah.
That's it for us. Thanks, Chris. That's Chris Level. I'm Chois Woodman. You've been tuned in to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.
You've been listening to the Ask Level podcast, powered by Double T 97.3.